It was one of those cold November nights when the wind cuts right through your jacket, no matter how thick it is. Robert had just finished his shift at the construction site and stopped by the grocery store to grab milk for his 8-year-old son, Danny's cereal. The boy went through milk like it was going out of style. As Robert walked toward his old pickup truck, keys jingling in his hand, he heard something that made him stop. It was a soft sound, almost like crying, coming from behind the big green dumpster at the back of the store. His first thought was that maybe a cat was hurt. But as he got closer, he realized it wasn't an animal at all. There, huddled between the dumpster and the brick wall, was a girl. She looked young, maybe 16 or 17, with long brown hair that hadn't been washed in days. She was wearing a thin jacket that was way too small for the weather, and her sneakers had holes in them. When she looked up at him with those big, scared eyes, Robert felt his heart break a little. "Hey there," he said softly, not wanting to frighten her. "Are you okay?" The girl quickly wiped her eyes and tried to stand up, but Robert could see she was shaking from the cold. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice was shaky too. I was just resting." Robert looked around the empty parking lot. It was almost 9 at night, and the temperature was dropping fast. The weather report had said it might even snow tonight. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lisa," she said after a moment. "And you don't need to worry about me. Can take care of myself." But Robert could see that Lisa was anything but fine. Her lips were turning blue, and she kept rubbing her hands together to try to warm them up. He thought about his own son, Danny, safe and warm at home with his grandmother. What if Danny was out here alone like this? "Listen, Lisa," Robert said, pulling his own jacket tighter against the wind. "I don't know your situation, but it's going to be really cold tonight. Have you eaten anything today?" Lisa looked down at her feet. "I had some crackers this morning," she said quietly. That was it. Robert made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "There's a diner down the street," he said. "It's warm, and they make good soup. Would you let me buy you dinner?" Lisa looked at him suspiciously. She'd been on the streets for 3 weeks now, and she'd learned to be careful around strangers, especially men who seemed too nice. "Why would you want to do that?" she asked. "Because everyone deserves a warm meal," Robert said simply. "And because I have a son about your age, and I hope if he was ever in trouble, someone would help him too." Something in his voice must have convinced her, because Lisa nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, "but just dinner, and I'm paying you back someday." Robert smiled. "Deal." The diner was one of those old-fashioned places with red vinyl booths and a jukebox in the corner. The waitress, a woman named Betty, who'd been working there for 20 years, took one look at Lisa and brought her an extra bowl of soup without being asked. As Lisa ate, Robert learned her story. She'd been in foster care since she was 12, when her parents died in a car accident. The system had moved her from home to home, and she'd never really felt like she belonged anywhere. Her last foster family had been nice enough, but they'd had problems of their own, and when Lisa turned 16, they'd told her she needed to find somewhere else to go. "I aged out early," Lisa explained, stirring her soup. "It happens sometimes. The family couldn't handle me anymore, and there wasn't another placement available right away." Robert listened, getting angrier and angrier at a system that could fail a kid like this. "Where have you been staying?" he asked. "Different places," Lisa said. "There's an old warehouse where some of us sleep sometimes. And when it's really cold, I try to find a place that's open all night, like a laundromat." "Us?" Robert asked. "Other kids like me," Lisa said. "There are more of us than you'd think." Robert thought about his own warm house, with Danny's toys scattered around the living room and extra blankets in the closet. He thought about his wife Maria, who died in that car accident 2 years ago. She'd always said that if they ever had extra room, they should help kids who needed it. "Lisa," Robert said carefully, "I have a small house not far from here. It's got a couch, and it's warm. Would you like to stay there tonight? Just for tonight, until we can figure out something better?" Lisa stopped eating and looked at him with those big brown eyes. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," Robert said. "I'm not some creep if that's what you're worried about. I'm just a dad who thinks no kid should be sleeping outside in November." Lisa was quiet for a long time. She'd learned not to trust people to easily, but something about this man seemed different. He hadn't asked her for anything. He hadn't made her feel like she owed him something just for buying her dinner. "What about your son?" she asked. "Won't he be scared if a stranger shows up?" Robert smiled. "Danny's a good kid, likes helping people, just like his mom did. And my mother-in-law Rosa is staying with us. She practically raised half the neighborhood kids. She won't mind." Lisa finished her soup and looked out the window at the snow that had started to fall. The thought of sleeping in that cold warehouse again made her shiver. "Just for tonight," she said. "And if your son or your mother-in-law doesn't like me being there, I'll leave right away." "Fair enough," Robert said, standing up and leaving money on the table. "But I think you'll be surprised." As they walked to Robert's truck, Lisa couldn't believe what was happening. 3 weeks ago, she'd been sleeping in doorways and digging through garbage cans for food. Now this stranger was offering her a warm place to sleep, no questions asked. "Why are you doing this?" she asked as they drove through the quiet streets. Robert was quiet for a moment. "Because someone needs to," he said finally. "And because I think my wife would have wanted me to." When they pulled up to the small house with the yellow porch light, Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe. Just maybe, things were going to get better. She had no idea that this moment, this simple act of kindness from a stranger, would change her entire life. And Robert had no idea that the scared girl he'd found behind a dumpster would one day become the most important person in his world. Sometimes, the best things in life start with the smallest acts of kindness. That first night turned into a week. Then a week turned into a month. And before Robert knew it, winter was in full swing, and Lisa was still sleeping on his couch. But something amazing was happening. What started as a simple act of kindness was becoming something neither of them had expected. Lisa wasn't just a guest anymore. She was becoming part of their little family. Danny had been shy at first, peeking around corners and staring at Lisa with curious eyes. But kids have a way of accepting people faster than adults do. Within days, he was asking Lisa to help him with his homework and showing her his collection of toy cars. "She's really smart, Dad," Danny told Robert one evening while Lisa was in the kitchen making them grilled cheese sandwiches. "She helped me understand my math problems better than my teacher does." Robert watched through the doorway as Lisa flipped the sandwiches in the pan. She'd found the apron that used to belong to his wife Maria and was wearing it like it was the most natural thing in the world. The sight made his chest feel tight, but not in a bad way. Rosa, his mother-in-law, had been the biggest surprise of all. Robert had worried she might not approve of bringing a strange girl into their home. But Rosa took one look at Lisa and saw what Robert had seen that first night behind the dumpster. A kid who needed help. "Mia," Rosa said to Lisa on her third day there, using the Spanish word for daughter that she'd always used with Maria. "You're too skinny. Come, let me teach you how to make real tamales." Lisa's eyes had filled with tears. Nobody had called her daughter in years. As the weeks passed, Robert watched Lisa transform. The scared, hollow-eyed girl from the dumpster was disappearing, replaced by someone who laughed at Danny's jokes and helped Rosa with the grocery shopping. She'd found a part-time job at the local coffee shop, insisting on paying Robert rent even though he kept telling her it wasn't necessary. "I'm not a charity case," Lisa would say, whenever Robert tried to refuse her money. "I pay my own way." She was doing so much more than paying rent. She was bringing life back to their house in ways Robert hadn't expected. The place had felt so quiet and empty after Maria died. Now there was music playing in the kitchen while Lisa cooked, the sound of her and Danny laughing over their homework at the dining room table. One evening in December, Robert came home from work to find Lisa helping Danny build a snowman in the backyard. She was wearing one of Maria's old coats that Rosa had given her, and her cheeks were red from the cold. When she saw Robert, she waved and called out, "Look what we built." The snowman was lopsided and had a carrot nose that was falling off. But Danny was so proud of it. Lisa said we should give him a hat, Danny explained, running over to Robert. "Do you think Mom would have liked our snowman?" Robert felt that familiar tightness in his chest when Danny mentioned Maria. But for the first time in 2 years, it wasn't just sadness. There was something else there too, something that felt like healing. "I think she would have loved it," Robert said, ruffling Danny's hair. She always said the best snowmen were the ones that looked like they had personality. Lisa smiled at him from across the yard, and Robert felt something shift inside him. This girl who'd been thrown away by the system, who'd been sleeping behind dumpsters just months ago, was somehow helping his family heal. The real turning point came right before Christmas. Robert had been struggling with whether to put up their usual decorations. The past 2 years, he'd barely managed a small tree for Danny's sake. But Lisa had other ideas. "Danny told me you used to go all out for Christmas," she said one Saturday morning. "He showed me pictures of the house all decorated. It looked beautiful." Robert sighed. "That was when Maria was alive. She loved Christmas. I don't know if I can do it anymore." Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What if we did it together? All of us could make new memories while still honoring the old ones." That afternoon, Robert found himself in the attic, pulling down boxes of Christmas decorations he hadn't touched in years. Lisa and Danny worked together to untangle strings of lights, and Rosa made hot chocolate for everyone as they decorated the tree. Lisa shared stories about the few good Christmases she remembered from her childhood. "My mom used to make paper snowflakes," she said, carefully hanging an ornament. "She'd tape them all over the windows. The house looked like it was covered in snow, even on the inside." "We should make paper snowflakes," Danny said immediately. "Lisa, will you teach me how?" That night, after Danny was in bed and Rosa was watching her evening shows, Robert found Lisa at the kitchen table, cutting intricate patterns into folded paper. "Thank you," he said, sitting down across from her. "For what?" Lisa asked, not looking up from her cutting. "For bringing Christmas back to our house? For helping Danny with his homework? For making Rosa smile again? For," he paused, trying to find the right words, "for being you." Lisa stopped cutting and looked at him. "Robert, you saved my life.
Hi.
I was ready to give up that night you found me. I'd been thinking about not being here anymore. And then this stranger bought me soup and offered me a place to stay. He gave me a reason to keep going." Robert felt his throat tighten. He hadn't realized how close they'd come to losing her before they'd even found her. "You're not just staying here anymore," he said quietly. "You're home. This is your home, for as long as you want it to be." Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "I've never had a real home before," she said. "Not one that felt like this." As the snow continued to fall outside, Robert realized that sometimes the most unexpected gifts come wrapped in the most unlikely packages. A scared girl behind a dumpster had become the missing piece their family didn't even know they needed, and this was just the beginning of their story. Spring arrived with a warmth that seemed to wake up the whole neighborhood. Lisa had been living with Robert's family for almost 6 months now, and everything felt different. The scared girl who once hid behind dumpsters was now helping Danny with his science project and planning Rose's birthday party. But with spring came something unexpected. Lisa was changing, and so was Robert. The way they looked at each other across the dinner table wasn't the same anymore. It was deeper, more complicated, and it scared both of them. Lisa was 17 now, almost 18. She'd grown more confident, more beautiful, and more sure of herself. She'd finished her high school courses online with grades that impressed even her teachers. The local community college had offered her a scholarship, and she'd decided to study social work. "I want to help kids like me," she told Robert one evening, as they sat on the porch watching Danny play with the neighbor's dog. "Kids who get lost in the system and forgotten." Robert felt proud watching her talk about her future, but he also felt something else, something that made him uncomfortable. When had he stopped seeing Lisa as the girl he'd rescued? When had he started seeing her as ... something more? The problem was, Lisa was feeling the same way. She'd catch herself staring at Robert when he came home from work, still dusty from the construction site, but smiling when he saw her and Danny doing homework together. She'd feel her heart skip when he laughed at her jokes, or when he told her how proud he was of her accomplishments. One warm May evening, everything came to a head. Danny was at a sleepover, and Rosa had gone to visit her sister for the weekend. Lisa and Robert were alone in the house, which didn't happen very often. They were watching a movie on the couch. sharing a bowl of popcorn, when Lisa's hand brushed against Robert's. Both of them felt that spark, that electricity that had been building for weeks. They looked at each other, and for a moment, the air between them was thick with possibility. Then Robert jumped up like he'd been burned. "I should go to bed," he said quickly, not looking at her. "Early day tomorrow." Lisa felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Robert, wait," she said, but he was already halfway up the stairs. That night, neither of them slept well. Robert lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling guilty and confused. Lisa was 17, almost 18, yes, but she was also someone he'd taken in when she was vulnerable. Someone who'd been like a daughter to him, wasn't she? But the feelings were real, and they weren't going away. The next morning was awkward. Robert left for work early. Lisa busied herself with cleaning the house and helping Rosa with the grocery shopping when she returned. But Rosa, who'd raised 5 children of her own, noticed the tension immediately. "What's wrong, Mia?" Rosa asked as they unpacked groceries. "You look like you haven't slept." Lisa tried to brush it off, but Rosa's gentle questioning eventually broke down her defenses. Before she knew it, Lisa was crying at the kitchen table, telling Rosa about her confusing feelings for Robert. "I don't know what's wrong with me," Lisa sobbed. "He saved me, he gave me a home, and now I'm having these feelings that I shouldn't have. What kind of person does that make me?" Rosa handed her a tissue and sat down beside her. "Mia, feelings aren't right or wrong, they just are. But what matters is what you do with them." "I think I should move out," Lisa said. "I got the scholarship and I could get a small apartment near the college. Maybe some distance would help." Rosa was quiet for a long moment. "Is that what you really want?" "I don't know what I want anymore," Lisa admitted. "I love this family. I love Danny like he's my little brother. I love you like you're my grandmother. And Robert, ... she trailed off. "And Robert?" Rosa prompted gently. "And Robert feels like home," Lisa whispered. "But I don't know if that's okay." Meanwhile, Robert was having his own crisis. He'd talked to his brother Carlos at lunch, trying to explain his confusion without going into too many details. "So let me get this straight," Carlos said, taking a bite of his sandwich. "You care about this girl?" "She's not a girl anymore," Robert said. "She's almost 18, and she's mature for her age, and she cares about you too." "What?" Robert nodded reluctantly. "And she's not actually related to you, right? She's not your daughter or your ward or anything legal like that?" "No, but nothing," Carlos interrupted. "Roberto, you're 34 years old. You've been alone for 2 years since Maria died. This Lisa sounds like a good person who's been through a lot. If you both have feelings for each other, why are you making it so complicated?" "Because I found her on the street," Robert said. "She was vulnerable and scared, and I took her in. Doesn't that make this wrong somehow?" Carlos shrugged. "Did you take her in because you wanted to date her?" "Of course not." "Did you ever make her feel like she owed you anything?" "No." "Has she ever felt pressured by you?" "I don't think so." Then maybe Carlos said, "You're both just 2 people who found each other at the right time. Love doesn't always follow the rules, hermano." That evening, Robert came home to find Lisa in the kitchen making dinner. She looked up when he walked in, and he could see she'd been crying. "Lisa," he started, but she held up her hand. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice shaky but determined. "I think I should move out. I got the scholarship and I could find a place near the college. Maybe it would be better for everyone." Robert felt his heart sink. "Is that what you want?" "I don't know what I want anymore," Lisa said honestly, confused about everything. "About my feelings. About what's right. About where I belong." They stood there in the kitchen, the dinner getting cold on the stove, both of them afraid to say what they were really feeling. "I don't want you to go," Robert said finally. "What?" "But I also don't want you to stay if it makes you uncomfortable." "Not that I'm uncomfortable," Lisa said. "It's that I'm scared. I've never had a real family before, and I don't want to ruin it." "You could never ruin it," Robert said. "You've made our family better. You've made me better." Lisa looked at him with tears in her eyes. "What happens now?" "I don't know," Robert admitted. "But maybe we don't have to figure it all out tonight. Maybe we can just take it one day at a time." That night, as Lisa lay on her couch thinking about the future, she realized something important. Home wasn't just a place. It was the people who made you feel safe and loved and wanted. and for the first time in her life she'd found that, whatever happened next, she wasn't ready to give it up. Lisa did move out that summer, just after her 18th birthday. She found a small apartment near the college. Nothing fancy, just a tiny place with a bed, a desk, and a little kitchen. But it was hers, and that felt important. The day she moved out was harder than anyone expected. Danny cried and begged her not to go. Rosa packed her enough food to last a month, muttering in Spanish about how skinny she still was, and Robert ... Robert helped her carry her boxers in silence, his jaw tight, with emotions he couldn't quite name. "I'll still come by for dinner sometimes," Lisa promised Danny as she hugged him goodbye. "And I'll help you with your homework whenever you need it." "It's not the same," Danny said, wiping his eyes. "You're supposed to be here. Your family." Lisa felt her heart break a little. "I'll always be family," she said softly. "Moving out doesn't change that." But as the weeks went by, Lisa wondered if she'd made a mistake. The little apartment felt lonely compared to the warm, noisy house she'd left behind. She threw herself into her college classes, working harder than ever. She got a job at the campus library and spent her evenings studying social work textbooks. Robert, meanwhile, was struggling too. The house felt too quiet again, like it had after Maria died. Danny moped around, asking every day when Lisa was coming home. Even Rosa seemed sadder, cooking smaller portions and shaking her head when she passed Lisa's old room. "You should call her," Rosa told Robert one evening as they watched Danny pick at his dinner. "She needs space," Robert said. "She's building her own life." "She's part of our life," Rosa replied firmly. "And you're both being stubborn." The turning point came in October. Danny had been working on a big school project about family history, and he'd gotten stuck. He needed help with research and writing, the kind of help Lisa had always given him. "Can we call Lisa?" Danny asked Robert after staring at his homework for an hour. Robert looked at his son's frustrated face and realized he was being unfair. Whatever complicated feelings he had about Lisa, Danny shouldn't suffer for it. "Of course," Robert said, reaching for his phone. Lisa answered on the second ring. "Robert, is everything okay?"
"Annie
"Needs help with a school project," Robert said. "I was wondering if you might have time to come over this weekend." There was a pause. "I'll be there Saturday morning," Lisa said. When Lisa walked through the front door that Saturday, it was like the house came alive again. Danny launched himself at her with a hug that nearly knocked her over. Rosa immediately started fussing over how thin she looked. And Robert realized how much he'd missed her smile. They spent the afternoon working on Danny's project, spread out on the living room floor with books and papers everywhere. Lisa helped Danny research his family tree, including the story of how she'd become part of their family. "So you're not related to us by blood," Danny said, writing carefully in his notebook. "But you're related to us by choice." "That's right," Lisa said, ruffling his hair. "Sometimes the best families are the ones you choose." As the sun set, Lisa started gathering her things to leave. "I should get back," she said. "I have studying to do." "Stay for dinner," Rosa called from the kitchen. "I made your favorite." Lisa looked at Robert, who nodded. "Please stay," he said quietly. During dinner, Lisa talked about her classes, her professors, her plans for the future. She was doing well, really well, and Robert felt proud listening to her. But he also felt something else. He felt like he was watching his life walk out the door every time she left. After dinner, Robert walked Lisa to her car. The October air was crisp, and Lisa pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "Thank you for coming today," Robert said. "Danny really needed you. I needed to be here too," Lisa admitted. "I've missed this. All of it." They stood by her car, neither of them wanting to say goodbye. Finally, Robert found the courage to say what he'd been thinking for months. "Lisa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Lisa nodded, her heart beating faster. "Are you happy?" Robert asked. "Really happy? Living alone? Being away from us?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "I'm proud of what I'm doing," she said finally. "I'm proud of my grades and my independence. But happy? I don't know." "What if I told you that I've been missing something important too?" Robert said. "What if I told you that every day since you moved out, I've wanted to call you and ask you to come home?" Lisa looked up at him, her eyes bright in the porch light. "I'd ask you why you didn't." "Because I was scared," Robert said honestly. "Scared of what people would think. Scared of messing up what we have. Scared of my own feelings. And now?" Lisa asked softly. "Now I'm more scared of living without you," Robert said. "I'm 34 years old, Lisa. I've been alone for 3 years since Maria died. I thought I was done with love, done with wanting someone in my life. But then you came along and changed everything." Lisa felt tears starting to fall. "Robert, I've been in love with you for months, but I was so afraid it was wrong, that I was just confused or grateful or something else. And now?" Robert asked, using her own words. "Now I know the difference," Lisa said. "I know what love feels like, and I know what gratitude feels like, and I know that what I feel for you is real." Robert stepped closer to her. "Where does that leave us?" "I don't know," Lisa said. "But I know I don't want to keep pretending these feelings don't exist." They stood there in the driveway, everything finally out in the open between them. It was scary and uncertain, but it was also honest. "I don't want to rush anything," Robert said. "I don't want to pressure you or make you feel like you have to choose between your independence and your feelings." "I don't want to rush either," Lisa agreed. "But I also don't want to keep running away from this. So what do we do?" Robert asked. Lisa smiled, the first real smile she'd given him in months. "We figure it out together," she said, "like we always have." As Lisa drove back to her apartment that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. She felt hope, not just for her future, but for their future. Whatever that might look like. The scared girl who'd hidden behind a dumpster was gone. In her place was a woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to fight for it. The next few months were like learning to walk on a tightrope. Robert and Lisa decided to take things slowly, to figure out what their relationship could be without rushing into anything. They started with simple things. Coffee dates between Lisa's classes, long phone calls in the evenings, family dinners where they sat a little closer than they used to. Danny noticed the change right away. "Are you and Lisa going to get married?" he asked Robert one morning over breakfast, as casually as if he was asking about the weather. Robert nearly choked on his coffee. "What makes you ask that? You look at her the way Dad looked at Mom in the old pictures," Danny said, matter-of-factly. "And she looks at you the same way. Plus, Rosa keeps humming wedding songs when she cooks." Robert looked toward the kitchen, where Rosa was indeed humming something that sounded suspiciously like "Here Comes the Bride." "It's complicated, buddy," Robert said. "Why?" Danny asked. "You love her, she loves you, we're already a family. It seems simple to me." Out of the mouths of babes, Robert thought. The real test came during the holidays. Lisa had been part of their family for almost 2 years now, and Christmas felt different this time. There was an electric tension in the air whenever she and Robert were in the same room, but there was also something else. A sense of rightness, like all the pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. On Christmas Eve, after Danny had gone to bed and Rosa had retired to her room, Lisa and Robert found themselves alone under the Christmas tree they'd decorated. Together, the house was quiet, except for the soft glow of the lights and the gentle ticking of the old clock on the mantel. "I have something for you," Robert said, pulling out a small wrapped box. Lisa's heart skipped. It was clearly jewelry, but she tried not to read too much into it. "You didn't have to get me anything special." "Open it," Robert said, his voice nervous. Inside the box was a simple gold necklace with a small heart pendant. But it wasn't just any heart. Engraved on it was a date, November 15th, 2018. The night he'd found her behind the dumpster. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "Robert, ... I know it's not an engagement ring," Robert said quickly. "I know we're still figuring things out. Tight. But I wanted you two have something that reminded you that you've always had my heart, even when I didn't know it myself." Lisa threw her arms around him, and for the first time since that night in May, they didn't pull away from each other. They held each other close, finally admitting what they'd both known for months. "I love you," Lisa whispered against his shoulder. "I love you too," Robert said, stroking her hair. "More than I thought I could love anyone again." They spent the rest of the evening talking about everything. Their fears, their hopes, their dreams for the future. They talked about the age difference, about what people might say, about how to make sure Danny felt secure through all the changes. "I don't care what anyone else thinks," Lisa said as they sat curled up on the couch together. "I only care about us, about this family." "Are you sure?" Robert asked. "Because once we do this, once we make this official, there's no going back. People will talk. They'll say things about how we met, about the age difference, about everything." Lisa looked at him steadily. "Let them talk," she said. "I know who. I am. I know what we have. And I know that what we have is real and good and worth fighting for." The next morning, Christmas Day, they told Danny and Rosa together. Danny's reaction was exactly what they'd expected. "Finally," he said, jumping up from the couch where he'd been opening presents. "I was wondering when you two would figure it out." Rosa just smiled and pulled them both into a hug. "About time," she said in Spanish, then in English. "I've been praying for this." But not everyone was as supportive. Some of Robert's friends at work made comments about the situation. A few neighbors whispered when they saw Lisa and Robert together. There were people who couldn't see past how they'd met, who couldn't understand that love doesn't always follow the rules. Lisa faced her own challenges. Some of her classmates at college didn't understand her relationship with Robert. Her professors worried that she was giving up her independence to Young. There were days when the pressure almost got to her. One particularly difficult day, after a classmate had made a snide comment about her sugar daddy, Lisa came home in tears. "Maybe they're right," she said to Robert as they sat on the porch swing. "Maybe I'm too young for this. Maybe I'm making a mistake." Robert took her hands in his. "Lisa, look at me. Do you love me?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Do I love you?" "Yes." "Do we make each other better people?" Lisa thought about it, about how Robert had saved her life, but also about how she'd helped him heal from his grief, about how they'd built something beautiful together, a family that was stronger than the sum of its parts. "Yes," she said. "Then that's all that matters," Robert said. "The rest is just noise." Lisa graduated from college that spring with honors. She'd been accepted to a graduate program in social work, and she'd already started working part-time at the local children's services office. She was building the career she'd dreamed of, helping kids like she'd once been. On graduation day, as Lisa walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she looked out into the audience and saw her family. Robert, Danny, and Rosa, all cheering louder than anyone else. They were her family, the family she'd chosen and who had chosen her. That night, as they celebrated at Lisa's favorite restaurant, Robert stood up and tapped his glass. "I have something to say," he announced. The restaurant was busy, full of other families celebrating graduation, but Robert didn't care who heard him. 3 years ago," he said, looking at Lisa, "I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never be happy again, never love again. Then I met a girl behind a dumpster who changed everything." Lisa felt her cheeks burn, but she was smiling. "That girl taught me that love isn't about timing or circumstances or what other people think," Robert continued. "It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better, someone who becomes part of your soul." Robert got down on one knee right there in the restaurant, pulling out a ring box that made Lisa gasp. "Lisa, will you marry me?" he asked. "Will you let me love you for the rest of my life?" Through her tears, Lisa managed to say yes. The entire restaurant erupted in applause, and Danny whooped so loud that other diners started laughing. They married 6 months. Later, in a small ceremony in the backyard of the house where Lisa had first found a home, Danny walked her down the aisle and Rosa cried through the entire ceremony. Some people in town still whispered, but Lisa and Robert didn't care. They had each other, and they had their family. 2 years later, Lisa was pregnant with their first child together. She'd finished her master's degree and was working as a social worker, helping homeless youth find safe places to stay. Robert had started a small nonprofit that provided temporary housing for kids aging out of the foster system. On a cold November evening, exactly 5 years after that first night behind the dumpster, Lisa and Robert drove past the grocery store, where their story had begun. "Can you believe it's been 5 years?" Lisa asked, her hand on her growing belly. Best 5 years of my life, Robert said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. Even with all the challenges, all the people who didn't understand. Especially because of that, Robert said. Easy love isn't real love. Real love is worth fighting. 4. As they pulled into their driveway, Lisa looked at the house that had become her home, her sanctuary, her whole world. Danny was visible through the window, doing homework at the kitchen table. Rosa was cooking dinner, probably making enough food for an army as usual. I used to think I was unlucky, Lisa said. Losing my parents, bouncing between foster homes, ending up on the streets. But now, I think maybe I was the luckiest person. In the world, how do you figure? Robert asked. 'Cause all of that led me to you, Lisa said. Led me to this family. Led me home. Robert leaned over and kissed her softly. Welcome home, he said, just like he had that very first night. And Lisa knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged.